And welcome, everyone. Welcome to Maranatha Live, tonight's version of Maranatha Live. So glad to have you with me. Joining me tonight on this beautiful evening here, getting getting cold out these days. I I made myself laugh the other day um, because I got in the car. I think it was on Monday. I got in the car and it was chilly, and I had just gotten back from Florida, don't forget, which I'll talk to you about in a moment, but it was chilly. And I got in the car and I just muttered to myself before I even thought about it. I said, "Oh, I'm so tired of being cold." And I thought, man, you better get used to it. It has just begun. I struck myself funny sometimes. I'm sorry, but I just thought I would throw that out. Okay, just before I get started tonight, I do want to just say thank you so much to Brother Steve McCoy, who filled in for me last week, did such a phenomenal job, such a sincere, honest-hearted, good man, just a good man. I don't know what better compliment I can give to somebody than to say that they're a good man. He's just good. Um, he's just a good man. I'm blessed to have him in my life. I'm blessed to have his family in my life. Um, and I'm blessed to have him, certainly blessed to have him we're all blessed to have him in our church. And I enjoyed watching him last week while I was in Florida. And I do want to talk to you just a little bit about that tonight. That's what I'm going to spend my time talking about tonight is my experiences last week and what took place. So let me get right into it because I do have a little bit to talk about, and I don't want to take a long time tonight. Um, as you well know, my father passed away this past week, and he passed away on Tuesday of this past week. And I want to thank everyone for the cards that I got and the sympathies and the kind words, and I just want to thank you all. In fact, I'm still getting cards in the mail, and I thank you. I thank you for that, for your kindness and your consideration, um, and sharing the grief with me. My father was a great man. He was 97 years old, soon to be 90. He would have been 98 on November 5th. So I didn't. I thank God I didn't lose him tragically. He didn't. I didn't lose him early. But when is it ever a good time to lose somebody that you love or that you care about or that's had a great and profound impact in your life? And he's had a profound impact in my life. So let me quickly tell you what happened to us this past week, and then I just want to go over three things, three major things that my father did for me and influencing me, and really molded my life and my mindset today through these three things that he taught me over the years. But it all started last Monday when my sister called and told me that my father was not. He had fallen down. Is what happened. He lost his balance and fell, and he banged his head. And they did X-rays, and they found a lesion of some sort on his brain. They didn't know at the time whether that was caused by the fall or whether that caused the fall. They didn't know. I'm not sure they know yet. The lesion did not heal, did not fix itself. In fact, it got worse. That leads me to believe that was probably there and caused the fall. But again, it wasn't the first time he had fallen. He has fallen a couple of different times here and there, lost his balance, and at 97 years old, that happens. At any rate, so Jameson jumped right on a plane. My son Jameson, what an awesome man he is also. But he jumped right on a plane Monday, shot right down there, and I'm so glad he did. And I'll explain to you why in a moment. I'm so glad he got down there when he did. I could not leave until Tuesday. As you know, I went to Syracuse Monday night because my son-in-law had scheduled to meet the district board for his license, and so I had to be in Syracuse on Monday night. And in my heart of hearts, I thought my father would, he had been in the hospital now for a couple of days, and I didn't think death was imminent right now. I mean, we knew it was serious. We knew, this probably could lead to his end, but none of us, I think none of us, I know I didn't think on Monday that would be as soon as Tuesday. So I scheduled, and thank God for my nephew, my sister's son is Sam Delarosa. He's a pilot for Delta. He called me immediately. I think on Monday afternoon, he called me and said, "Look, I want to help you. I can get you buddy pass tickets because he's a employee of Delta. He can get cheap tickets." And I was so thankful for that, to get discounted tickets. So he started going over the itinerary with me, and when he started going over the itinerary with me, is when I realized that they were going to be standby tickets. I probably should have, in hindsight's 2020, they say. I probably should have, in hindsight, said I can't risk standby tickets for this. I need to make sure I can get there. But he had me tickets that were getting in, and he felt pretty confident that I'd be able to get on this flight and I'd be down to Florida by 11 o'clock on Tuesday. Incidentally, my father did pass away on Tuesday. He passed away, I think it was about 5:30ish that he passed away. So I would have been there in plenty of time, except that the flight started filling up, and he suddenly realized I probably would not make that flight. So he called me back and he said, "Look, at that flight looks like it's filling up. I'm afraid you might not be able to get on that one." He said, "But there is a flight leaving out of JFK in New York City Tuesday morning, early Tuesday morning. That's going to get you. It's a direct flight. This one's a direct flight. It'll get you into Florida about the same time." I said, "Let's do it." So we got up at 2 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. Got to bed late, of course, packing, getting everything ready, just getting back from Syracuse. Got up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I think we had about 2.5 hours sleep. I jumped in the car, got our things packed, jumped in the car, drove down to JFK Airport. Got as far as the George Washington Bridge and got stuck there. I hit two problems. I hit morning commute traffic, and I also hit an accident on the bridge that held things up so bad. And I was watching my GPS, my arrival time. My arrival time was just kept ticking forward until finally I realized I no longer have enough time. Even if I got off this bridge right now. Actually, I did get off the bridge, and the next bridge, I forget what the name of that bridge was. That one was all backed up too, and the red roads, on the maps, the red was for miles ahead, and my estimated time kept going closer and closer to flight time until finally I realized even if the roads opened up right now and I drove straight in, I probably would not make it. I'd never been to JFK before. I wasn't even sure what terminal I was going to. From the research I did, it looked like Delta flew out of Terminal 6. Maybe some of you know. I just hoping the GPS got me to Terminal 6. I had no clue where the parking was. I had no clue how I was going to drop the First Lady off, and then go find parking, and then get back to where the First Lady was. To get to I had to still go through the ticket counter to get a pass to get through security, and then I had to go through the TSA security, and at a place like JFK, I had no law. I realized I'm not going to make it. I won't get through in time to get there to get on this flight. So rather than to waste any more time, I turned all the way around. Once I got across the bridge, I turned all the way around and shot all the way back up north to get back home. I called my sister or Jameson. I forget which one I called, but I told them I'm not going to make it on this flight. I couldn't get through, accident, whatever. So while I was still driving, Jameson jumped on the phone. He got me, forget the money. He didn't care about the money. I didn't care about the money. But he got me a flight out of Albany at 11 o'clock. Was it 11? No, it was 1 o'clock. I had to be there at 11. 1 o'clock flight out of Albany that had a 5-hour layover in Baltimore. And it was while I was in that layover at Baltimore that I got the phone call that my father passed away. So it was a very long day. I got into Florida that night, I think around 9:30ish, went and got a hotel room, rent a car, got a hotel room, got to bed, get up in the morning. My Jameson had already left. By the time I got to Florida Tuesday night, my Jameson had already left. But he was there, and I thank God he was there. My sister was there. My brother-in-law was there. Jameson was there. 2 of my nieces were there. 2 of my sister's daughters were there. Not everybody could make it. The ones that couldn't make it felt bad. I felt bad. Shoshana couldn't make it. A couple of Mary Beth's children, my sister Mary Beth, a couple of her children couldn't make it. Shoshana felt awful. Liz wanted to go. As you know, Liz had been sick with COVID, she wasn't going anywhere, let alone on a plane. But there were four, my sister, her husband, two of her kids, and Jameson. So there was five people in the room when my father did pass. And my one niece did take some videos of the scenes. And one of the things they asked Jameson to do, I'm so glad they did. And it brought tears to my eyes when I watched the video. It's choking me up right now as I think about it. But they had Jameson sing in that hospital room, "'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus," and he sang it so beautifully, so moving. The spirit, I could feel the Spirit of God through the video. I can only imagine what it was like in that room, and I'm so glad that that's the last thing. If my father could hear anything, he wore hearing aids and his hearing aids weren't in. So I don't know if he could even hear anything that was going on. I don't know if he was conscious. But if he could hear anything, I'm so glad the last thing he heard sung was "'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus" by his grandson, singing that beautiful song. And you know as well as I know how anointed Jameson is when he's behind that. Well, anytime if he's in the pulpit or whatever, but when he's behind that piano and singing, and he's just so anointed, and it was so touching and so moving. And I'm so glad. And I don't know. I believe that my father would not have known if I was there or not. Not that I would say I'm not going. He wouldn't know if I was there or not. That's not what I mean by that. What I mean is, if I had gotten there, it wouldn't have made a difference to him, because he wouldn't have known, or to his moment of death. None of that would have changed. But the one thing I did pray, because I knew when I got on the Southwest flight finally and headed towards Baltimore, and I knew I had a long layover in Baltimore, and I began to realize there was a good chance he may pass away before I get there. And I got on that plane. I just put my head down. People next to me probably thought I was sleeping. I don't know what they thought, but I prayed the whole trip. I just kept praying. And one of the things that I prayed over and over and over again was, Jesus, don't keep my father alive suffering for me, so that I can get there to see him before he dies. Don't make him suffer. Don't let him suffer. And he was suffering. He was in pain, and they were giving him morphine to ease the pain, because if the morphine started to wear off, he would groan. And at one point they said he got into almost like a fetal position because of the pain he was in. So he was in great discomfort. And they were giving him medication to ease that discomfort. And I just prayed, Lord, don't keep him hanging on for me. I didn't pray, Lord, keep him alive till I get there. I prayed, Lord, don't make him suffer till I get there. If you can take him home now, so be it. So be it. I tried my very best. I did the best I could to juggle all the things that were going on and get down there. And it didn't work for me. It didn't work. But I believe the right people were there. My sister was there. My sister, what a gem she is, and her husband. My father lived with them for the last. I think he lived in their home for over a year of his last days. And you can imagine that the stress that she works a full-time job. She took care of him, and God bless her for what she did and what she was willing to do, and what she's doing now, because my sister is a whiz with finances. She's a whiz with all this stuff, and she's taking care of all of the paperwork and all of the will. She's just, I don't know what I would do without my sister. Appreciate her more than I probably ever have in all of my life. These past several years, that we've had to become even more connected than we ever were because of my father, or through my father, I should say. So I just want to thank God for my sister Mary Beth and her husband Stephen, for the great, wonderful job they did taking my father in, keeping him out of a nursing home. He was living in an assisted living home for the last, I don't know, maybe was it a year, maybe not even a year. In assisted living. He was not in a nursing home. He had his own room. He, could walk about and go about as he wanted to. The people there were wonderful. He had friends. So he had the last days of his life were wonderful. And my sister just did a phenomenal job of self-sacrifice and giving to help my father. So First Lady and I, we got back home on Friday night, and we were scheduled to get. I think we were scheduled to get in 8ish, and we ended up with a couple-hour delay in Chicago Midway Airport. We got stuck there, and flights were delayed, and we got in late Friday night finally, and I went to bed and crashed. I probably slept more hours Friday night into Saturday than I've slept in a long, long time. But I thank God for all of that. Okay, so I've gone on long enough about talking about all of this. I want to just quickly mention 3 things that my father taught me in my relationship with him over the years. And it started when I was a small child. My father was always a very hard worker, and most of my memories of him, I have a lot of good memories with him of doing other things, camping. He would take us camping on the islands, hiking, climbing a mountain, whatever. But the main things that he taught me started when I was young, and he was in the process of buying a restaurant. He was going to become a restaurant owner, and he was at the restaurant. He was working at the restaurant. He was getting to know all the positions, all the jobs, and he was behind the counter one day. And my mother took us in. I remember a small child. My mother took us in. I remember my father being behind the counter, waiting on people, counter service, just so he could understand how it all works, because he was going to eventually be owning the place. And he was working there, and there was another guy that was working there with him. And the other guy was turned around and faced me, and I saw the other guy was wearing a name tag. And on the name tag, it had his name, and then it had his position. He was the assistant manager. And that sounds pretty impressive. He was his name and his assistant manager. And I looked at my father. My father had no name tag. Not only was his name not there, but his position wasn't there. And I knew, even as a small child, that my father was buying this place. He was going to be the owner of this place. If he was anything, he was at least the manager at this right now. He was here not working for this guy. He was there learning how this thing runs, because this guy was going to be working for him. And it bothered me that this guy wore a tag that said assistant manager, which is nothing wrong with that. He was the assistant manager. He probably had that tag for, before my father ever came on the scene. But he was wearing a tag telling us he was the assistant manager, and anybody else would look around and just think my father's just a nobody, just some guy working, because he doesn't even have a name tag, let alone his position. And I looked at my father and I said, "Hey, Dad." He said, "What?" I said, and I was just a little kid. I don't know how old I was. Maybe my sister can help me remember how old we were when my father was in the process of purchasing this this restaurant, but which he never did, by the way. He backed out of it. Some things went south, and he didn't like it, and he wasn't going to be. No one's going to take advantage of him, so he backed out of that deal. Which, in hindsight, is probably a great thing. At any rate, at that time, he was in the process of buying it, and I was just a little kid. And I looked at my father and I said, "Hey, Dad." He said, "What?" I said, "How come you don't have one of those?" Because I wanted my father to be known that he was above this guy. That was important to me as a little kid. My father looked at me and did not miss a beat. He turned around to see what I was talking about. When he realized I was talking about that name tag that said he was the assistant manager, he turned right back around at me and looked me in the eye, and he said, "That doesn't mean anything." And what he taught me that day was that titles mean nothing. Work ethic means everything. Your character means everything. What you do means everything. Doesn't matter what other people know about you or don't. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter if these patrons knew that he was going to be the owner. He could have been just some guy flipping burgers. It didn't matter to him what they thought. He knew what his role was, what his job was, and he did it to the best of his ability. And he taught me that day, just from that little interaction, that it does not matter what other people think of you, what their impressions are of you. You're not here to please people. I'm here. He was there to please his boss or the guy he was purchasing the place from. My job is to please the Lord. And it does not matter what other people think of me. It does not matter if other people know who I am. It does not. People don't need to know I'm the pastor of the church. I've had people come to church and not even realize I was the pastor until I walked up to the pulpit and started preaching. And then they think, "Wow, that's the pastor?" Because I stand at the back door oftentimes to greet people coming in and to say hi to visitors, because It doesn't, and they walk in and they think I'm just some guy that's on the greet team or something. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter who you think I am or what you think I am. What matters is that I know who I am and that I know that God knows who I am. And I learned that from my father. I'm not here to impress people. I'm here to be true to myself, and I'm here to be true to my God. And as long as I can go to sleep at night and close my eyes and know I did my best, it doesn't matter if you know that or not. It doesn't matter who knows that. It doesn't matter who thinks what. And as long as I can go to sleep, lay down at night, close my eyes, and know that between me and my God, He knows I did my best, I can rest in peace. And I learned that from my father as a small child because that's how he lived. He wasn't out for recognition. He was just out to do a great job, and I appreciate him for that. Secondly, I learned a work ethic from my father, and I trust that I can still boast of a good work ethic. But my father had a tremendous work ethic. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be honest with you. From my earliest childhood memories, which I'm sure some of these memories, they all get jammed together way back then, but I guarantee you I got memories from pre-kindergarten that are sitting in there. I can't say that's pre-kindergarten. I just, all the way back, as far back as I can remember. And I'm being dead serious and dead honest. Listen carefully. I remember in all of my life growing up in my home with my father, I remember one day, just one day, that he did not get up and go to work. Think about that. I can only remember one day when he was so sick, he actually called the company and said he can't make it today. I don't ever remember. I can guarantee if I called my sister right now and asked her, she wouldn't be able to remember times that my father called. I always called it called in sick. I guess that the people refer to now as called out. One time in all of my years growing up, I remember only one time my father being homesick. Now, don't tell me year after year after year after year he never fell under the weather. Don't tell me he never got the flu, never got sick. Don't tell me he never felt bad. Don't tell me he was never overtired. Don't tell me he never had a bad day. Don't tell me that. But he never missed work. He went to work and did his job. And I learned that same work ethic. Not by him sitting me down, so you need to be a worker. By his example. You know the old saying, actions speak louder than words? My father's actions spoke louder, way louder than any words he'd ever speak. And that was one of those actions, because I was like that. When I started working, I just went to work. I remember one time I went to work. This isn't always wise. I don't always recommend this because you don't want to be spreading sicknesses around. So they almost recommend, nowadays they want you to, if you, especially with COVID now, if you're feeling under the weather, stay home. You don't want to spread around. But I remember having tonsillitis. Now, I had tonsillitis way back when. I still have my tonsils, by the way. I had tonsillitis. Strep throat it was. I'm sorry, it was strep throat. I had strep throat. Bad. I had bad strep throat. And I went to work. And I was so bad, I could not swallow. And I can remember having a bottle of water and putting it in my mouth and rinsing my mouth out and spitting it out because I needed to moisturize my mouth, but I couldn't swallow it. And yet I went to work. Why would I do something like that? Why did I get up and go to work with strep throat that bad? I finally made a doctor's appointment, and I went to work that morning with my doctor's appointment pending, and actually left work to go to the doctor. And when I got to the doctor, he examined me, and as God is my witness, this is what the doctor said. This is the worst case of strep throat I have ever seen. That's what he told me. And I was at work that morning. Why did I do that? Why did I just get up? Why did I not think to start? Didn't even cross. Why would I not think that? Because my father never did. And I didn't realize that. That was ingrained in me from a child. You get up and go to work. You don't stay home. You don't let things keep you. And so I learned that work ethic from my father. I'm going to tell you something. When I went full time in the ministry, my children were still little when I went full time in the ministry. And when I went full time in the ministry, I was no longer getting up in the morning, because when my children were born, I was still working a full time job for several years. And one of my biggest fears when it was time and the church had grown and my time and the demand was great enough that I couldn't do both anymore, that I had to stop going to a full-time job and spend full-time pastoring the church. And my full-time job now incorporated being home, because I had an office in my home, so I was home a lot. My biggest fear, and I'm being dead serious, and before God, I'm being honest with you, my biggest fear going full-time in the ministry was that I would not be an example to my children of a good work ethic, the way my father was to me. And I thank God he either picked up the slack, or my children recognized the fact that even though I wasn't going out the door to go to work, I was busy working and laboring and giving time and energy to something that needed to be done. And my wife and I gave our guts, and still do give our guts, to this church. I give my life to this church. And evidently it did show, because all three of my children have phenomenal work ethics. All three of them. My daughter, my two daughters, and my son Jameson, all of them have tremendous work ethics. And of course, that's partly because I think from the time they were 15 and could get some kind of working papers, we started making them get jobs and taught them that you gotta, when you can take care of yourself, you need to take care of yourself. So all three of my children have great work ethics. I have no doubts that my grandchildren will have the same. My grandson Isaac is 17. He's already got a phenomenal work ethic. So he's learned that from his father. His father, Joe, who I did not raise, Joe, who married my daughter Elizabeth, he's got a phenomenal work ethic. Joe is, God has just blessed me. And I thank God that this was passed to me, and I was able to pass it to my children, and my children found in their spouses men with great work ethics also, or women with great work ethics. And although Erica doesn't have a full-time job outside of the home, her work ethic is tremendous, laboring in that house, working in that house, raising those kids. My daughter Shoshana works a full-time job, plus she takes care of her home, and she takes care of her baby. And she married a man, Michael, who's got a phenomenal work ethic. He works nonstop hours. There's no punching out for Michael. There's a job to do. He gets it done. Sometimes I go over there in the evening time, he's still on his computer doing something for work. My son-in-law, my daughter Elizabeth, she has a phenomenal work ethic, and she married a man with a phenomenal. I'm a blessed man. And that I really feel like, not so much where my daughter-in-law is concerned, because I didn't raise her, nor my son-in-law, because I didn't raise him, or either one of my son-in-laws, because I didn't raise them. I thank God that my daughters found that in their spouses, men with great work ethics. And my son found that in his spouse, a woman with a great work ethic. And I thank God for that. And I just feel like it was passed down to me from my father, who had a phenomenal work ethic. And it's now been transferred into my children. And now it looks like it's being transferred also into my grandchildren, because my grandson, who's got a full-time job now, has got a tremendous work ethic. In fact, he was out sick with COVID and actually texted me today and wanted to know, do you think it's okay for me to go back to work? He's wanting to get back. He's not looking to play this out. I can't come back yet. I still have COVID. He actually texted me, do you think it's been this amount of days? Is that good? Can I go back to work now? And I told him, yes, you fulfill the government requirements. I said, just check with your HR department to make sure they don't have other rules and regulations that they follow in the company. I said, but yes, he's wanting, and I thank God for that kind of work ethic that gets passed on. Work ethic, my friend, we are workers. It's the first thing God gave them to do, even before the fall in the Garden of Eden, before they fell, before they sinned, God gave them work to do. Their job was to take care of the garden. That was before sin. So be a good worker. And I thank God for that work ethic that my father passed on to me. One last thing. I know I've taken a long time here tonight, but one last thing I just want to say that my father taught me. He taught me this phrase and taught it not only in word, but he taught it in deed. And that is, nothing is impossible. There's just some things more difficult than others. And my father had that mindset. Don't tell him it can't be done. Don't tell him you can't make it happen. He will. He'll make. And I'll tell you one quick story that'll help you understand this. They were moving into a house. My mother and father moving into a house, and my brother and I, of course, were helping him move. And he had a box spring. You know, box springs are not like a mattress where you can fold them. They are wood. They're squared wood, and I forget what size. I don't think it was a king size, but probably a double bed, or it was bigger than a full size, whatever size. I don't even know what do they go, single, full, double, whatever. It was a bigger box spring, solid box spring. Not You couldn't crush it at all, and it could not go up the stairs because the stairs had a corner. It just would not go around. So he decided we get it up onto the roof of the porch and through that bedroom window. And so we went up there, and he was working on something. My brother and I were working on getting this mattress in. So we got it up on the roof. We've got it up to the window, and it was not going through that window, my friend. It was just too wide to fit this way. We couldn't get it in. You tilt it a little bit, that would take less off. It was not. We tried everything, and finally we said, "Dad, this thing's not coming in this house. It won't fit up these stairs, and we can't get it through that window." My father, he was always upbeat about things like this, and oh no, well, we'll take care of this. He goes, "Rick, nothing is impossible. Just some things are more difficult than others. We'll get it through there." And my brother and I looked at each other while he's telling us we're going to get it through there. We looked at each other like, he's crazy. He is not. And we, kind of, roll our eyes and shake our heads and say, it's not going through. As God is my witness, you know what's coming. You know what's coming. As God is my witness, he went up there. I still don't know how he didn't take moldings out of the window. He didn't take panels out. He did nothing different than what we did. And he got that thing through that window. He said, nothing is impossible. Just some things are more difficult than others. And to this day, I remember that particular story in particular. And I remember that statement, because when I'm faced with difficulties and hardships and things that I don't see how I'm going to get it done, or I think it can't be done, I remember nothing is impossible. There's just some things that are more difficult than others. So don't forget that. Don't forget, words of Carl Frank, nothing's impossible. Just some things more difficult than others. So let me just wrap this up by reminding you, number one, titles mean nothing. Just do your job. Do what you're supposed to do, and do it with all your might. Doesn't the Bible say that? What your hands find to do, do it with your might. That's what matters. Okay. Secondly, work hard. Be honorable in your work. Don't because the boss isn't looking, slack, because your real boss is always watching. His name is Jesus. So do your job and do it to the best of your ability. Put the time in. Put extra time in. So what? So what of this company? So what if you gave this company a few extra minutes or an hour? Don't nickel and dime. Just do the job, the best of your ability. And don't ever forget, no matter how difficult the task is before you. My mother used to say it this way: if there's a will, there's a way. If there's a will, there's a way. Do you have the will? My father had the will that day. I didn't, evidently. He did. There was a will and there was a way, and he found that way. Nothing is impossible. Just some things are more difficult than others. Thank you so much for joining me tonight and letting me ramble on about my memories of my father. And he will be greatly missed. I thank God for the years we had with him. I thank God that I was able to even get closer to him over the past few years of his life than I had even ever been. I was able to even get closer to him, and I thank God for that. And one more shout out to my sister and her husband, Stephen Mary Beth Della Rosa, for the tremendous sacrifice they made and even continue to make now, taking care of all the loose ends and all the paperwork now that must be done. Thank you. Let me publicly thank my sister for all that she's doing. God bless you all. Join us this Sunday. Be in church. Don't take the easy way out. Don't let things get in the way. If there's a will, there's a way. Be in church. Do the right thing. Do the honorable thing. Worship God. Praise God. Love God. Serve God. Love one another. Don't worry about your position or lack thereof. Be kind to people. Love people. Greet them when they come in. Be somebody that makes a difference. God bless you all. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I certainly do appreciate you having me. And I'm sorry I went so long, but I hope I see you on Sunday, 8:30 or 10:30. And if you absolutely can't make it to the building, we are online, both on our Facebook page, Maranatha Facebook page, and on our Maranatha YouTube page. We love you all. I love you all. Thank you for joining me tonight. God bless you.